You wake under fluorescent lights. The clock on the wall doesn't tick. The hallway outside your room is too quiet. There's something strange about the nurse that checked your vitals. And suddenly, it sinks in. She didn't have a face. Welcome back, spooky friends, to Let's Talk Spooky, the podcast where folklore, urban legends, and haunted history come together. I'm your host, Shauna, and today we're scrubbing into the unsettling world of haunted hospitals. I don't know about you, but there's something unsettling about hospitals that hits you on a primal level. Maybe it's the bleak, sterile aesthetic, or the smell of chemicals that hangs in the air. Or perhaps it's something darker, knowing that some who enter a hospital never truly leave it. I recently spent a week in one due to an aggressive ear infection, and I have to say, even for someone who loves the macabre and the creepy, laying alone in that hospital room at night, listening to the hum of the IV drip, had me wondering if I was truly alone, or if someone or something might be watching me from behind the curtain. Definitely made sleep non-existent. So in honor of my little hospital visit, I'm going to take you to a few of the most haunted hospitals around the world. Some of them you might have heard of, but others may be new. Alongside the haunted history of the locations, I found some first-hand spooky tales. Just a little bit more of a reason to keep your lights on longer tonight. So as always, grab your flashlight, don't wander too far from your ward, and let's talk spooky. We start in the heart of Kentucky at one of the most well-known haunted buildings in America, Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Originally opened in 1910, this towering brick structure sits atop a hill shrouded in fog. Its very name evokes shivers for paranormal enthusiasts and attracts over 35,000 visitors each year. During the height of the tuberculosis epidemic, or what some refer to as the White Plague, Waverly Hospital acted as ground zero. TB was incurable at the time, so many patients were isolated for months, even years, making the hospital a place of not just healing, but waiting. Some sources say as many as 6,000 people died on the grounds between 1911 and 1960. To avoid demoralizing patients, staff would quietly remove bodies through a 500-foot underground tunnel. This became known as the body chute, or the death tunnel. Can you imagine? You're in your room, coughing up blood, terrified, and suddenly you hear the gurney wheels squeaking past your door again and again and again, just knowing that soon you might be one of those bodies. It was a grim reality to an already terrifying situation. But as much as the horror of what patients waited for was terrifying, the real hauntings came after the location had closed its door to patients in 1982. The hospital went quiet and became a place of curiosity for those who would seek knowledge of its more tragic tales. One of the most chilling legends lies in room 502. It's said that in the 1920s, a young nurse was found hanging from a light fixture. The story goes that she was pregnant, unmarried, and abandoned by the doctor who had got her in that situation. Alone and helpless, she took her own life. But legends say that she was found with strange markings on her wrists, and her eyes were wide with fear. Though, through research, there was no sufficient evidence to support this additional information, but it is creepy to think about. Over the years, visitors of Waverly report having seen ghost of the young nurse, still in a blood-splattered uniform, watching them from the door of room 502. Others report having heard a woman whispering, "It wasn't me." There is an infamous photo of what people believe to be the nurse of 502, which you can check out on our Instagram page at Let's Talk Spooky Podcast. Because of its haunted history, there's no shortage of spooky stories for those who have worked, visited, or investigated at Waverly. But I've chosen one from the following Reddit user, ShadowPerson502, and it goes, I was doing an overnight investigation with 2 small groups in the building. As I walked down to where the restrooms are, my significant other, cousin, and wife were standing on the 4th floor, along with a couple of people from the other groups. My significant other is a complete non-believer. She refuses to accept anything being paranormal. When I walked back to the 4th floor, they weren't there. I ended up finding them all the way back at the 2nd floor, shaking. After I had walked downstairs, they all saw the exact same thing at the same time. Keep in mind that a couple of them are total strangers. They all saw a very large black shadow move towards them in the hallway, as well as a smaller shadow crawling across the floor rapidly towards them. My significant other, who is not a believer, was in tears. None of the people in that group would go back to the 4th floor. It's really something when you take a total skeptic and let them see something so unexplainable for themselves. I don't know about you, but I think I might not be returning if that was something I saw on my tour. Or maybe I would, you never know. But definitely spooky. Now we shift from the red bricks of Kentucky across the globe eastward into the dense, misty woods of Sayama, Japan. Unlike Waverly, with its well-known documented ghost history, Sayama exists more as a myth wrapped in mystery. Its corridors may be silent, but the stories are deafening. Rumors of nurses who never clocked out, patients who vanished without a trace, and a tragedy that stained more than just the hospital walls. Japan is a place where folklore and memory tend to blur. Known as one of the most haunted islands in the world, Sayama Hospital as less of a place and more of a warning. Tucked in the woods of the outskirts of Sayama City, not far from Tokyo, is a place locals speak in hush voice, a decaying building half swallowed by nature, its windows broken, its records missing, and its past deeply stained. Sayama Hospital, or what's left of it, has become the center of one of Japan's most persistent urban legends. Unlike Waverly Hills, Sayama doesn't boast official ghost tours or preserve its architecture. In fact, the hospital's very history is hard to pin down, which makes it even more chilling. Some say the building was abandoned after a string of strange deaths. Others whisper unethical experiments, patients left to suffer in silence, and staff that mysteriously disappeared. A common tale tells of a nurse, still in uniform, seen roaming the halls, her pale face, her eyes empty, carrying out routines for patients long gone. But one story that stands out above the local tales is not exactly about the hospital itself, but the tragedy that may have fueled the supernatural power of the location. On May 1st, 1963, 16-year-old Yoshi Nakata was abducted while riding her bike to school in the small city of Sayama. When afternoon came and Yoshi didn't return home from school, her family contacted authorities immediately. Her disappearance rattled the locals, and after days of searching local areas and woods, her body was eventually located. Heartbreakingly, Yoshi had been raped, murdered, and partially buried in the earth of Sayama Hills, within extreme close proximity to what remains of Sayama Hospital. The investigation into Yoshi's death was swift. Some say too swift. Police arrested Kazuo Ikasawa, a poor, undereducated man that some say was easily framed. Under intense pressure from authorities, Ikasawa confessed to the murder, but would later redact his confession, claiming the confession at the time had been extracted through coercion and abuse. Despite the inconsistencies in much of the evidence and public outcry, Ishikawa was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 31 years behind bars before being paroled in 1994. After his release, he spent much of his regained civilian life being consistently labeled as a murderer. Until his death in 2025, he continued to fight for a retrial, a final chance to clear his name and rewrite his story. But the Sayama Incident sparked a whisper of dread, a cultural scar that bled into the arts of the collective memories of Japan. In time, strange stories began to circulate about the nearby Sayama Hospital. Some said you could hear the cries of a girl in the wind, drifting through the corridors. Others spoke of a young woman who wandered the halls at night, lantern in hand, her bare footsteps never making a sound. But her crying could be heard lingering across the woods like fog. This tragic story of a young child taken by a true evil, not of the paranormal world, but of our own, demonstrates just how a true crime case that's so violent can stain a landscape so deeply that it becomes folklore. Our last spooky location brings us all the way back across the water to Canadian soil. Riverview Hospital, located in British Columbia, was founded in 1913 and was originally called Essendale Hospital for the Insane. It was meant to model a humane mental health care center, grounded in sprawling greens with over 1,000 acres of beautiful manicured gardens, greenhouses, and open airspace, where patients could heal through nature, heterocultural, and occupational therapy. But as the years passed, the ideal gave way to the reality. In the 1950s, Riverview housed over 4,000 patients, many of whom lived in overcrowded wards under questionable conditions. Electroshock therapy, lobotomies, and forced sterilization weren't just whispers, they were the norm. Regardless of the treatment styles of the time, Riverview was seen as a state-of-the-art facility, even being awarded recognition by the Canadian Mental Health Association and funding from the federal government. However, by the 1980s, the introduction of modern antipsychotic medication saw a large drop in the number of admitted, causing Riverview to eventually close its doors for good in 2012. Some say pain leaves an imprint, a kind of emotional scar that's stitched into the walls of a location. And Riverside is no exception to this. Security guards, nurses, and even film crews working on site have reported shadow figures, phantom footsteps pacing empty halls, and disembodied voices whispering when no one else should be there. Especially in the Old West Lawn building, which was abandoned originally in 1980. One visitor claimed to see a woman in a hospital gown staring out a shattered window. She didn't blink, she didn't move, and when he looked back, she was gone. But the curtains were still swaying ever so slightly. Because of its overall creepy atmosphere, it's not surprising that many popular film productions use this location as a backdrop. It's been featured in shows like X-Files and Supernatural, and horror films like The Butterfly Effect and Final Destination 2. Directors love its eerie hallways and time-worn interior. Simply standing among the faded grounds means they don't have to fake the haunted feeling. It's already there. I could only find one creepy Reddit story that I think will really send shivers down your spine. I'm a bus driver for TransLink Bus 169, which goes through the Riverview Hospital complex in BC. I was on a last shift of the night and am kind of always on edge, of course, because it's super eerie at night, and luckily I had a couple in the back of the bus, so I wasn't exactly alone while driving through this place. As I was driving, though, I saw a man sitting at the bus stop. Immediately, I was filled with dread because it was after midnight and I doubt that someone would be randomly waiting for the bus this late, especially since the complex had been closed to the public at 9 p.m. So I had to do what I had to do, and I pulled over and let the man in. But the strange thing is, when I opened the door, there was no one in the seat. I was pretty sure I saw a person though. So I just closed the door and I gunned it. I wasn't going to go outside and check. That would be a rookie mistake for sure. Anyway, so I made it to the rest of the route okay, and I pulled up to the last stop on the bus and disengaged the locking mechanism for the back door for the couple to get out. I heard the guy in the back say, "What the?" and turned around and saw the back door was open, but the couple was still making their way towards the door. Our buses equipped it with a pressure-sensitive push bar that activates the door when it's pushed against. I disengaged the lock to allow the door to push open, and I asked the couple what was the problem, but I already knew the answer before they had said it. The door had opened by itself. I don't know if it was the mechanism or not. Maybe it was just a coincidence, but I saw a man, but then he was gone, and the back door just opened by itself. Otherwise, maybe it could mean the ghost man got on the bus and then got off the bus. I'm not sure what to do when driving that route, but I really don't want to do it anymore. So if you're taking the bus in that area and the door opens by itself, definitely take a second look, because you never know who's going to get on with you. What we learned from each of these locations is that what connects them isn't just paranormal. It's people. The ones who were lost, the ones who were silenced, and the ones we try to forget even when they're still reaching out for us. Tonight wasn't just a tour through the haunted hospitals. It was a reminder of how trauma echoes and how sometimes listening to ghost stories is one way to listen to the pain that was never allowed a voice. So, as we close the door to this episode, take a moment. Let the silence speak. Let the past breathe. And remember, the scariest stories aren't always those about ghosts. Sometimes, the truth is way more haunting. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Let's Talk Spooky. If you like this episode, don't forget to leave a review, share, and follow Let's Talk Spooky wherever you listen to your podcast. It helps our spooky family grow. So until next time, don't be afraid of the dark, but maybe don't ignore it either. Stay curious, and of course, stay spooky. This episode was written and produced by me, Shauna. If you have your own eerie hospital tale or a hometown haunting story that you want to share, email us at letstalkspookypodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow us on our social at Let's Talk Spooky Podcast on Instagram. Until next time, thanks for listening.